I've noticed that the people with the biggest issues in these areas, where it's socially, not having any friends, not being able to attain relationships, there is one thing that these groups have in common, and that is actually what has steered the direction of this channel. The one thing all these people have in common is that they are all introverts for the most part. Now, we can always argue what exactly an introvert is. Are you born an introvert, or can your environment make you an introvert? I believe both things can be true. For me, introversion is linked to the nervous system, sensitivity, the requirement and the need for space or solitude to think deeper. But it also can be something due to the environment. Maybe your lifestyle over years and years, you've just lived like a recluse, away from people, in your own world. This is something that I'm going to dissect further in the future as well, what exactly an introvert is, the different types of introversion, the behaviors of the typical introvert versus perhaps a not so typical introvert. But all I know is this, speaking as an introvert myself. In fact, let me use an example from my life. I grew up in a rough area in London. Most of my friends as a child were associated with gangs. So in the area of having sex as a youth, most people in my area, in my community, probably had sex early in their teenagehood. But myself, I first had sex much later than my teenagehood. In fact, I was outside of my teenage years. And I know exactly why this was. This was because during my teenage years, I was very introverted, very insular, very into myself, very much a homebody, pretty much recluse. Now, for me, it's a mixture of life events and nature. And I think that will be the typical situation for most people. We don't live a perfect life, and we don't have a choice when it comes to our genetic disposition. But certainly the reason why I held it off till later was because I just didn't have the outward nature, the outgoing nature. In fact, I can remember again, going back into the memory banks, into the archives. In year 6, I remember a girl who I actually liked. That's a key point. A girl who I actually liked went on a trip to Fort Park, which is an amusement park here in the UK. And it was like the last holiday, so the last few days of year 6. I can remember I've always had a crush on this girl. I've always liked this girl. I remember asking for a friend if she likes me and if we want to be boyfriend and girlfriend, asking her out, quote unquote. And to my surprise, she said yes. And literally, a day didn't go past. Literally in a few hours, I turned it down. This was someone who I had a crush on. I literally turned down their acceptance. It wasn't because there was anything wrong with the girl, it was because of myself. It was because I was anxious. I was worried about, where do I go from this point? How do I take this person out? Low self-confidence. And unfortunately, low self-confidence is often a feature of introverts. This is why it's very key for introverts to be very routine about going outside, going to new locations, because without the experience, people will tend to just not have confidence, not know how to go out of their own social circles or into new areas. And I use these examples because at the end of the day, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you listening to this can relate, that if you are too introverted, if you are too into yourself, in your shell, living in your own inner world, you're not outgoing, this is a very debilitating condition. It's almost akin to a disease, to be honest with you, because if you suffer from social anxiety, that basically means that you're afraid of the world. If you are afraid of the world, that means you can't operate effectively in this world. And so this is why, at least from my vantage point, there is a introvert to incel pipeline. Over the years, after a long time of living in a certain way, your mind changes. You begin to accept that this is the reality. Your reality being that you are destined to be alone, quote unquote. You are destined to not have any or many friends. You are destined to not really have a dating life or to have relationships. And people begin to look into predeterminism. People try to find answers to this condition in perhaps suggesting that perhaps they were just born with failure genetics that are just not conducive to success in the real world. And naturally, when a human being begins to think in a certain way, their whole life usually leans in. You are what you think, essentially. If you think you aren't supposed to be successful, you will never be successful, because you have just confirmed what route in life you're going to take. And I believe the chief culprit behind these mentalities is the introverted personality. I guess a big pushback to that would be something like looks matter, right? Looks matter in the sense that how you are treated by other people is largely determined by how you appear to them, how you look. And I'm going to do a video on that as well, in terms of looks matter and how it concerns introverts, because what I'm finding as well is that even if you are relatively attractive as an introvert, that's not enough. Now, people can talk about various scenarios, and it often revolves around Jeremy Meeks types of lucky situations where someone just has good looks and doesn't have to say a thing, and their life is going to be a success. But the thing about even that example is that this guy probably lived a whole life just looking at his crimes of failure, right? He probably lived a life that was subject to how he was thinking, his mentality, his psychology, and his environment, regardless of his looks. You know, in a way, the fact that this character got popular was to do with some sort of outreach, right? I believe a spreading of a mugshot. But needless to say, in most situations, just standing there and being an attractive person is not enough, especially as a man. If you don't have the ability to outreach socially, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you can probably get appraisals from a distance, looks of approval like head nods and you know, some sort of flirtatious advancement. But what good is that if you don't have the confidence or courage to go and seal the deal, basically? So it's a very debilitating condition. Now, at this point, I'm not going to shoehorn some last-minute solution as a sort of light in the tunnel, happy ending where we can all live happily ever after. No, I believe that, unfortunately, not everyone can be touched, in the sense that not everyone has the flexibility or the fluidity for their mindsets to change. Some people are very callous and stuck in their ways now. So for those types of people, this video is not for them. But this video is for the person who has the mindset that is akin to growth and expansion. Because I'm pretty sure many people didn't realize that a big part of their life situations, particularly their failings, is due to their personality trait, namely being an introvert. And so going back to the memory that I shared, okay, so amongst my peers, I was late to basically get it in with women. But now the time when I was able to summon the confidence and I had the belief in myself and I had the ability to throw caution to the wind and to just do what I want to do, it was actually a time when I was forced to be more social. So this was a time when I've just recently left university. I'm out into the big old world. And just before I officially finished university, I netted a full-time job in a gym. And so this is probably a key area where people can begin to come out of their shells. It's employment type. Now, perhaps if you want a solution, a clear-cut solution, perhaps that could be go and work in a gym. Absolutely. Working in the gym basically puts you in an arena where you have to interact with a lot of different people from every social class, every ethnicity, young or old. You're going to have to deal with them. Put yourself in situations where you have to speak to people, and you have to speak to people in a confident manner where you are giving them a service, you are fixing problems. You know, it could be around the gym. Oh, a machine's not working. Okay, I will sort that out. It could be how to use this machine. Okay, here I can help you. Many different people. And the gym is one of those areas where people, at least people who want to be healthy, can't avoid. It's a good arena when it comes to speaking with a lot of different people. Versus, for example, again, university is a good example. Typically, you are with people around your age, usually socialize with people who are kind of similar to their social economic status. You know, the guys that wear black Adidas tracksuits are usually hanging around with other guys that wear the black Adidas tracksuits. And so even further education is not a great place or a great time to enhance on these characteristics. Saying that, this is why I can also understand why a lot of students might be in a certain mindset or might be more inclined to feel like the future is bleak, because honestly, you just haven't been put out in the real world and tested. You know, and I think that says something as well, in that some people study all throughout their 20s into their 30s, and I'm not sure if that's a good idea, because you lose a lot of life experience at very vital, pivotal ages. So indeed, work, or most importantly, place of work, can help the introvert overcome. And when I mean overcome, I don't mean completely eradicating introverted traits. That is impossible. But I believe that we live in a world which is visual. We live in a world that is sensual, meaning that, you know, people aren't psychic. And this is a weakness of many introverts, not being able to express themselves. If you can't express yourself in this world, if you can't, for example, advertise your product, marketing, outreach, if you can't do these things, you are very likely going to fail in everything. And that could be from business going all the way down to dating. If you can't put yourself out there, the best version of you, you're going to fail. And this is how I see the introvert to incel pipeline. People who haven't had the right training or perhaps awareness that can help them summon the confidence to improve in this area. Should you improve in this area? Well, that's really up to you. But I definitely think that the people who are seeking such content where it's almost confirming their doubts or their negative beliefs, mindsets, I really think deep down you're probably the type of person that wants to find a solution. You want to overcome the reality that you're in. I think deep down you probably don't believe that this is your final dwelling place, in the sense that this is supposed to be your reality. Well, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts. Is there an introvert to incel pipeline? Are most black pillars introverts? Misunderstood, unable to bridge gaps between people, and therefore left behind, blooming late, if at all?